Hi, my name is Dale Comstock, and today what I want to talk to you about is travel security. Whether you're a new traveler or an experienced traveler, you have to assume that you're always going to be a potential victim, a target, either for crime or for terrorism, or just a punching bag for someone that doesn't like you because you're a foreigner in their country. So what I want to do is, at this point, is kind of talk to you a little bit about travel security and some do's and some don'ts. I've had the benefit of traveling to over 66 countries in my life. I've either visited or actually lived there, everywhere from the United States to Europe to the Middle East to the Far East to down to Africa. And unfortunately, because of that, I've been able to learn a lot, and the good and the bad. And I've also been able to see other people learn their lessons, the good and the bad. And so what I want to do is share some of those experiences with you. Hopefully, enlighten you enough that your next time traveling abroad will be a little bit safer for you. First of all, I would tell you, expect the unexpected. Most tourists, when they travel, they're oblivious to what's going on around them. They look like soft targets. Their mannerisms, their demeanor, their poise is just, it just shows almost kind of, it shows vulnerability. And that's what the bad guys are looking for, whether it's, criminals or terrorists or just bullies. They're gonna size you up. And the way you present yourself is gonna probably make the difference as to whether or not they come after you or whether they leave you alone. So the moral of the story is, look like a hard target. So I know that's all relative. You may see yourself as, the Incredible Hulk or Superwoman in the mirror, but you have to think about, how do other people see you? How do you really look in the real life, And then be honest with yourself. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with necessarily how you look so much as how you carry yourself. If you have poise, you walk with your head up, you look like you're moving with a purpose, you have confidence. That goes a long way for dissuading a potential adversary from targeting you, and they'll just move on, usually to a softer target. So don't be that guy or that girl, that soft target, if you can help it. The other thing is, before you travel, make sure that someone knows where you're going. Hand them an itinerary, so they know pretty much day by day what you're planning on doing, how they can reach an emergency, how they can reach in case your cell phone is not working or they have no way to contact you, an alternate means for contacting you, which if you read the PACE plan for communications, I talk a lot about that in there, as well as using different types of communications and applications to help you stay linked with your points of contact, what I call on the near side and the far side. In other words, from your point of origin to your destination. So some things I do. I carry a day-and-a-half backpack. In fact, the one I carry is a ballistic backpack. It's actually bulletproof, and I get through every airport with it. Nobody cares. Nobody even knows it, because the Kevlar is pretty much sewn into the backpack itself. And but I carry the backpack, and the reason I carry it in lieu of a roll-on bag is for several reasons. One, if I have to move quickly by foot, I can do it a lot faster with a backpack on my back. If I miss a flight and I've got to, catch a bus or a taxi, or I've got to walk a ways, it's a lot easier to do that with a backpack on than it is to try to pull a roller bag over, over curbs and rocks and gravel and things like that. And in fact, I've had enough roll-on bags that I've actually broken the wheels off in transport. Before I got one wheel on a roller bag, and now I'm carrying it. So I like the backpack, and the backpack I call my little camper, because at the end of the day I can live out of a couple of days. I've got enough stuff in there, like shaving kit and razors and toothbrush and toothpaste and deodorant. I carry first aid kit with bandages and bacitration and different types of ointments and things that I might need, like antifungal creams. I also carry a small Pelican case that has antibiotics in it, like Cipro, amoxicillin, and a few other ones, aspirins and Tylenol, and Lomotil for diarrhea. And so there's a host of things in there that I carry, and I would suggest that when you do travel, especially going to a foreign country, especially when you're going to a third world country, you know, that you carry those things with you. Go to your doctor, try to get a prescription and instructions on how to use those when you are sick. At least enough to get you to the hospital so you can seek proper you know, medical care. So I also carry alternate communications with me besides my cell phone. I actually carry 2 cell phones, and I carry a local cell phone and international cell phone. I also carry a satellite phone. I carry a satellite phone for a couple of reasons. One, sometimes, depending on where I go in my work, I don't want people to know where I am, and so I'll communicate with a sat phone so that I'm not going through the local landlines or cell towers to call back to my destination. The other reason I do this, sometimes I can't even get on the local cell phone service with my cell phone, so I just go to my backup, which is my satellite phone. Anyways, those are just some of the items I carry. I carry things like a survival kit with, you know, hooks and snares and little tiny saws and lock picks and things like that as well. But basically, at the end of the day, my backpack is my survival pack, and I've thought of every contingency, every situation I could potentially find myself in, and what I try to do is carry the minimal amount of stuff that I need to get me through an anticipated scenario, so to speak. So more on that later when we talk about the day and a half pack. Let's talk about a few other things that you should do prior to actually departing from your location. Go to the Department of State website. There's a page on there called the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, and basically what that does is when you enroll in that, you're letting the consulate know wherever you're going that you're going to be in their area, in their country, in that country, and you're providing your cell phone information so that if there is some type of a crisis or some type of emergency, they can at least notify you and know that you're in the country. And so I start with that. You know, you can also go to their website or to the CIA fact book and do an area study analysis, basically read their area studies for that particular country that you're going to, and it kind of pretty much covers everything. So you get a pretty good idea, you know, what to expect when you get onto the other end. And I'll add here that it's never what you expect. I'm always surprised that when I go to a new country, I have a preconceived notion of what it's going to be like until I get there, and then when I get there, it's like, wow, it's totally different, or pretty much different. In fact, right now I'm talking to you from Indonesia, and you know, it's the largest Muslim country in the world, and I can tell you that before I came here, I had a preconceived notion of what it must be like, and now that I'm here, I'm like, it's nothing like it's portrayed in the media or anything else. Interestingly enough, that you know, there's a lot of Christians here, there's a lot of Hindus and Buddhists. They all live, you know, side by side. There's just no issues that you think you would have in a country like this. So I was just totally blown away when I arrived here, and this is true for a lot of countries I've gone to. So keep an open mind, I guess, is what I'm trying to tell you. Make sure that you distribute when traveling. Make sure that you first make a copy of your passport and carry that separate from your main passport. You know, make sure that you've got at least 2 credit cards or debit cards with you, and then also make sure that you have cash on you and a couple forms of ID. And why is that? Because if you lose one of them or some of it, you still have a backup. And of course, with that said, make sure you don't keep all those items together, where if, you know, for example, you keep them all in your purse and you lose your purse, you lost everything. You know, what you want to do is distribute that stuff throughout your purse and your purse, and maybe even your luggage or baggage once you get your hands on it. I wouldn't put it in my suitcase while it's under the aircraft or in a luggage compartment. I will wait till I actually have it in hand. It's going to stay with me. Then I'll start to redistribute, which I'll talk more about here in a second. So it's good also to have a good cover for status and cover for action. In other words, when you go somewhere, whether it's on business or for leisure, you know, first of all, don't volunteer everything about yourself, where you came from, why you're here, what you're doing. You know, until you really know someone and you really can trust them with that information, it's not advisable to share it. You know, you're giving free intelligence to the opposition. And so keep it to yourself, or keep it very shallow. You know, like for example, when I travel and on the when I come through the immigration form and it asks what my occupation is, I usually just put actor, you know. And although I do a lot more than act, you know, that's one of the things I do. I just leave it generic as acting, you know. And that's as far as we need to talk about that. And if I get pulled in a secondary and you know, and then the interview begins and it gets they get a little bit more depth, and I'm gonna start giving them information, because after all, it is you know, it is a national agency. However, when it comes to civilians, I try to be as evasive as I can for as long as I can, and just because I don't want to be targeted down the road because someone knows too much about me. So what if the crap out of everything? You know, again, what if it, you know, and you know, think to yourself, what if this happens, or what if that happens? In your mind's eye, you see it, and then think about what would you do. You know, it might not be the right response in the situation, but at least you've developed a plan, you've shelved it in your mind, and so if that scenario ever does play out, at least you have a plan to start acting on, rather than trying to figure out on the spot. And that goes into the realm of autogenic conditioning, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. Basically developing a survivalist and defensive mindset. So I mentioned cover for status and cover for action. Basically, cover for status is who I am. I'm an actor. My name is Dale, you know, and I'll leave it at that. A lot of times I use an alias last name, or an entire alias first and last name. And then my cover for action, you know, if I'm on business, a lot of times I'm just here to visit a friend and do some sightseeing, and I'll leave it at that. And whatever, you know, but I never tell people directly why I'm visiting or who I really am, unless they really have a need to know. With all that said, don't announce you're traveling. That's another thing people like to do, you know, on Facebook. And you know, I found that I've spent a lot of time on Facebook, more than I should. And really, the only reason I'm on Facebook is for me, it's a good way to interact with people. Obviously, it has some marketing value, and I've actually made, you know, I've actually done pretty well financially through Facebook. I've had a lot of offers and jobs and opportunities to exploit from there. But more importantly, what I've noticed is a lot of people, when they go travel or they're preparing to travel, they tell the whole world where they're going and what they're going to do, or they'll broadcast in real time where they are and what they're doing, you know. And you know, and for some people, you know, it really doesn't matter. Nobody's really going to come after them. But for some people, you know, that have a little bit of notoriety, things like that, you know, or may have money, or people may think they have money, that's just kind of setting yourself up for trouble. And if people can track you long enough, and you'll be surprised how many people will actually know who you are just through social media. I'm always amazed that when I travel, in fact, I'll use this local area where I am right now. I was walking down the road one day, and a guy pulls up in a car, and the first thing he said to me was, "Hey, are you the American Badass Dale Comstock?" And I'm like, "How the heck did you know that?" And he knew me from Facebook. You know, he just somehow was able to track me through Facebook, and he pulled up. And at first it was kind of scary, and I didn't acknowledge who I was until I started talking to him, and then, you know, once I decided he's probably okay, you know, I rogered up to that. But that was probably not a good idea either. But it just so happens he was one of my neighbors right around the corner as well. Anyways, point is, don't announce what you're getting ready to do. And if you have to, you know, tell people what you're doing, you're having fun, I would suggest you wait at least 24 hours before you post something like that. At least you're gone, you're left the area, and you're doing another activity. So if somebody is tracking you, it's a little harder for them to dial in on you right away. Okay, no local customs. Again, that's another one that can bite you in the butt. Is don't assume anything. Don't assume that everybody else thinks like you, looks like you, acts like you. You know, understand the cultures you're getting ready to go to. And I'll use another example here where I was working in Hong Kong for a while, and when I got there, I noticed that you know, there's 7 million people in Hong Kong, and everybody was walking up and down the street, and their eyes were down, kind of like looking at the ground like zombies, you know. And I'm like, man, what's up with all these people? You know, they're either really, really focused, or they're thinking very heavily about something, but they're certainly not. They're not walking their head up, and they're not looking at people. They're not making eye contact, and you know, and what I did know, and I did my research, was that's actually a cultural thing with the Chinese. You know, they don't look people in the eyes. I did notice though that if I said something to somebody, they look at me, their eyes got all bright and they smiled and they were happy to talk to me. But customarily they try to avoid contact and out of sign of respect. And so if you don't understand that, it's very easy to misinterpret that as that they're maybe being passively hostile towards you or something like that, when in fact that's not the case. So again, knowledge is power, and study the environment you're getting ready to go into. And anyways, moving on a little bit more, let's talk about when you arrive your location. Let's just say that you've arrived at the airport. As soon as you arrive at the airport, you want to notify somebody on the far end and the near end. Far end being back at home, your point of contact that knows where you're going and what you're doing. Let them know you've arrived, that you're safe, and what you're getting ready to do next. And then make the call to your near point contact, your near side contact, the people that you are anticipating meeting, if anybody at all. Maybe you're not, but if you are, let them know that you're here and that you're good to go. Recover your luggage. Okay, take your luggage before you leave the building. Go to, say, the restroom. Go into a stall, and what I want you to do here, or suggest you do here, is what I do, is basically at this point I transload equipment, sensitive items, essential items like my identification cards, my credit cards, passports, my money, things like that. Basically, I do redistribute them on my person, my backpack, and my suitcase, so that if I lose a suitcase, I haven't lost everything. If I lose my backpack, at least I got something in my pocket, a credit card and some money and an identification. So I distribute the load for contingencies. The other thing I do is I carry a knife with me. I carry a pocket folder with me, and I carry it in my suitcase initially, and then when I arrive in the country, I take it out and I put it on my person. And normally I basically stick it, in my waistband on the inside with the clip between the waistband itself and the belts to kind of disguise it. And I will caution you, some countries, if you get caught carrying a knife, it's a very heavy fine or penalty, and you could find yourself in jail for a couple of years easily. So again, know the laws of the country you're going to before you do something like that. If you can't carry a knife, and think of an alternate weapon like perhaps a sharpened Phillips screwdriver, or if going camping, maybe a tent peg that's been sharpened a little bit more. So if you are pulled up or pulled over, you're just carrying a tent peg or a screwdriver. You're not carrying a knife or a tent peg or a weapon, right? So anyways, be thinking about stuff like that. What's a knife going to do for you? Well, it could actually help you break contact if you find yourself in some type of an encounter, maybe a life and death encounter, and you wouldn't be the first one that's been in a knife fight when traveling. You're not going to be the first one that's been attacked when traveling, and something's better than nothing. So you can argue, people can make all kinds of arguments for the pros and cons of carrying a knife. I can tell you, everywhere I go, I always carry a knife as a minimum. Especially in a foreign country. If I can't carry a knife, I'll carry another improvised weapon. So anyways, be thinking about that. Redistribute in the restroom before you actually exit the building. And then once you begin your exit process, you need to be keep yourself in condition yellow, condition orange, and this is tied into the OODA loop, which we'll cover again in another blog and another video. Basically, there's 4 different conditions that that we basically a smart person will operate in and be aware of, so that they're not caught off guard, and they're in a certain state of readiness all the time, so that they're never surprised, and they can always react quickly enough and effectively enough to hopefully save themselves from whatever is going to happen to them, whether it's bodily harm or being robbed or whatever. So anyways, those are just some of my points on this. The most important thing that I want you to walk away with is, don't take anything for granted. Be a hard target. Prior planning, as we used to always say, prior planning prevents piss poor performance. In other words, the steps that you take before you ever depart, and the planning that you do will save you a lot of grief once you're in country, wherever you're going. And if you have contingency plans, you have backup plans, you have points of contact, you know, then your travels will go a lot smoother than if you don't do stuff like that, and then all of a sudden you're caught short. Man, it can be a mess. I'll give you an example. One time I was traveling. I went to Abu Dhabi, and in the airport, I got some money out of the ATM machine. Well, they had someone put a scanner on the machine, scan my credit card numbers, my debit card numbers, and I had a little bit of money on me, and then I tried to use my debit card the next day, and it had been blocked. And then I found out somebody had been on the internet, and they had bought, like, you know, entire clothing stores and purses and all kinds of stuff, and wiped me out. Bank called me, blocked my card. I had no card. My other card was blocked, and I had like $200 worth of cash on me, and I had about 5 more days left in country. And then the funny part was I actually called a girlfriend to send me some money through Western Union. She tried to send me money through Western Union. Western Union contacted her and said that I've been blocked and I can't receive money either. And I thought, geez, now I'm in a country with no money, no credit cards, no debit cards, and, you know, pretty much living off of $200 for about the next 5 days. And it was not a good feeling. And I mean, I was able to work my way through it, no issue there. But for some people, you know, it may not be that simple. So, you know, the lesson I learned was have more than one debit card, several debit cards from different banks, or credit cards, and then carry enough cash so if I lose my credit cards, I can live off the cash, and have those contingencies in place. And then, of course, when I got back, called Western Union, and they were totally clueless. You haven't been banned. And I was like, well, you know, that's not what you guys said. But anyways, that's another story. Anyways, happy travels.